My Lords, I will not detain you greatly with this amendment, but it seeks to ensure that when electricity storage systems are planned, it is with the full knowledge and consent of the local fire authority, so that fire and public safety risks are understood and mitigations are put in. Now, surprisingly, there is no duty for promoters of these schemes to consult with the local fire authority, so my amendment would correct that omission. Now, as the grid is reinforced, the ability to stabilise and isolate the electricity supply from surges and shocks is essential, and a number of short and long-term technologies exist to smooth the path of electricity from the generator to the consumer. The people of the Iberian Peninsula will attest to the consequences of failing to have network stabilisation in place, especially when dashing for renewables. Now, some of these smoothing technologies contain highly flammable materials like lithium, but hydrogen is another, and given the time constraints today, I will just focus my remarks on the lithium side for the purposes of proving the point. Now, not a day goes by when a fire isn't caused by a lithium battery. The local Lord Reedsdale is promoting a lithium-ion battery safety bill, and this is not to seek to trespass on that, but it does demonstrate that fires caused by batteries are a thing. Now, the issue is clear. When a lithium battery, for example, catches fire, huge quantities of water are required to extinguish it. Your Lordships will recall the case of the car-based conflagration at Luton Airport, where the multi-storey car park was totally consumed. Whether or not that fire was started by an electric vehicle, once it took hold, the batteries in those cars quickly made the fire unfightable for longer. More so had petrol or diesel alone been involved. Now, the dangers are further illustrated by the number of fires in bin lorries. Even a small computer battery can consume an entire refuse freighter. Airline passengers are now routinely warned about the dangers of phone batteries catching fire, imperiling the whole aircraft in an inextinguishable blaze. So imagine the scale of the flames if an entire grid-scale battery storage facility caught alight. This issue needs to be taken seriously, and the bill as currently drafted fails to do so. It just glosses over the consequences of failures in long-term and short-term energy storage, including the large-scale battery systems, and especially those storing huge electrical capacity and containing flammables. You don't need to be a bright spark to realise that an electrical spark can spell danger. Now, many of the proposed LDES and BESS schemes in particular are in the countryside, where the existence of fire hydrants is limited. Rivers and ponds may be far away across the fields or along narrow lanes. Water carriers may be miles away, and during a dry period, deep-seated, hard-to-fight fires can spawn secondary blazes that can run wild across a whole area. In the towns, proximity of businesses, schools, homes and buildings adds a further dimension of public safety to the mix. And in both cases, consideration of the leakage of lithium, in particular to the underlying aquifer from the firefighters' runoff water, is essential. Now, of course, there were other risks: the availability of water carriers, appliances, specialist equipment in areas which may be staffed by part-time retained firefighters are just few. So this amendment would seek to enforce a duty for an applicant for an energy storage facility and the local fire authority to fully assess the risks, including fire and public safety, and to pay a reasonable fee to do so. Now, if the government resists this stipulation, then we risk damage from uncontrollable fires to people, property, businesses and the environment at significant cost to the wider taxpayer and local government, costs which should be borne by the developer. So I've had representations from councils that the cost of providing water storage lagoons, additional appliances, staffing should be fully borne by the applicant, not the taxpayer. I have not gone that far with this amendment, but I do wonder whether the Minister would meet me to explore this if other noble lords feel that it is a good idea, in which case I would consider bolstering this proposal at report stage. But for the moment, if we just take the issue of fire safety from these high value, high consequence electric storage systems, then I think we'd be doing not just this House but the society a favour. I beg to move.
Well, Flynn, I think that's a good point, and I accept that point.
My Lords, we've had an interesting brief debate that actually had a few twists and turns. The noble Lord the Minister asked me whether I was satisfied with his response, and I regret to say I'm not satisfied as at all, for reasons I will give in a moment. Before then, I'd just like to deal with Lord Russell's interventions. Now, I wasn't sure on one hand whether he was for or against this particular amendment, but I just regret that he sort of fatally undermined his noble friend's Lord Ridsdale's lithium-ion safety bill, which now must be pointless from the Liberal Democrats' point of view, because I would have thought that he would have been standing full square behind my amendment in highlighting the dangers of lithium. The noble Baroness Bloomfield mentioned, sort of quantified, if you like, the value of battery storage insofar as its total amperage, the capacity. But the value of battery storage isn't necessarily purely in the storage capacity. It's in the smoothing of the voltages at an aggregate level across the whole grid, and also maintaining the hertz. It is a difference of only 0.2 hertz in the Iberian catastrophe that caused that catastrophic knock-on effect, that contagion that brought down the entire grid in Iberia, in Spain and Portugal. And so we mustn't just look at battery storage in the terms of the current, it's in terms of the stability. Now, the noble Lord Browborough was very good talking about, well, what happens if we had all the batteries in the world? And of course, my concern is, do we have all the water in the world to put these fires out if they start? And of course, I accept the pumped storage thing that sits aside from this, the de Norwigs and other things. So this is a probing amendment, but I'm not satisfied at all with the Minister's response, because he might want to sort of dwell upon it. Well, the HSE has this desktop analysis, which in advance of an application at the formative stages, they might do a desktop study. But they're not the ones who have the practicality of putting out these conflagrations when they do catch fire. And with a huge amounts of stored capacity electricity, fires are common, and when they do, they are catastrophic. The noble Lord Berkeley refers to that ship that sank off Holland. Over 3,000 cars went down with that ship. It burned for days. The hull glowed white hot. These are difficult, and that was at sea. So once this thing gets going, it is really important to sort it out. And I just don't accept for a moment that the HSE is the competent authority to actually put these fires out. The noble Lord refers to, well, we might be applying additional burdens on fire authorities if we go through this process. My lords, it are the fire authorities in Norfolk and Essex that have asked me to raise this issue, because there is no statutory duty for the promoters to consult with them. They're concerned about it. They have public safety and fire safety and environmental safety at the forefront of their minds, and the law doesn't permit them from executing what they consider are their statutory duties. So I regret to say, and whilst I reassure the noble Lord, I will withdraw this amendment because we are at committee stage, but the more this debate has gone on, the more I do feel that a meeting to progress this is important. At a later stage, who knows, we may wish to test the view of the House. But with that in mind, and I hope we can meet later on this matter, in the meantime, I withdraw my amendment.
Is it your Lordship's pleasure that the amendment be withdrawn? The amendment is by leave withdrawn.